All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into something pretty groundbreaking, a new study that poses a really wild question. What if a special kind of diet could do more than just make you healthier? What if it could actually reverse your body's age? Yeah, you heard that right. And the answer is, well, it's pretty surprising.
So let me ask you something. Is your real age the same as the one on your driver's license? You know, we all have that number, the candles on the cake. But have you ever had one of those days where you feel way older, or maybe even surprisingly younger? Well, it turns out that feeling isn't just in your head. There's a real scientific idea behind it, and it's called
Biological age. So what is that exactly? It's not about how many birthdays you've had. Nope. It's a measure of how well your body is actually running on the inside. Think of it this way. Your chronological age is the odometer on your car, just racking up miles. Your biological age, that's the engine health. And believe me, that number is a way better predictor of your health, and, well, it's tied into some of the biggest health problems we face.
See, when we talk about the problem of aging, we're not just talking about getting a few wrinkles. From a medical standpoint, an older biological age means a much higher risk for really serious chronic diseases, things like diabetes and fatty liver disease. It's a big deal. Which leads to a massive question. What if we could actually do something about the aging process itself?
And that's exactly what a group of scientists set out to test. They came up with a really clever solution, a special diet that's designed to mimic the effects of fasting. Basically, it tricks your body into thinking it's fasting so you get all those amazing benefits, but without having to go through a super tough water-only fast.
So what is this thing called? It's the fasting-mimicking diet, or FMD for short. And the key thing to know is that it's not something you do every day. It's not a constant diet. It's something you do in cycles.
So, how does this cycle actually work? It's pretty straightforward. For just 5 days out of the month, people in the study ate this special, plant-based, low-calorie, low-protein diet. Then, for the other 25 days or so, they just went back to their normal diet. That's it. And in this particular study, they repeated that cycle for 3 months in a row.
And this is what really sets the FMD apart from a hardcore water-only fast. You're still getting nutrients, which is meant to make it way safer and honestly just easier to stick with. You're trying to get all the good stuff from fasting without as much of the misery and the risk. So the million-dollar question is, did it actually work?
Okay, so let's get into the results. And the first set of findings were frankly stunning. The researchers zeroed in on key markers for metabolic health, things that tell us about our risk for certain diseases. And what they found was a huge effect, especially when it came to one of our most vital organs. Get this. The diet seriously slashed the amount of dangerous fat stored in the liver. And I can't overstate how big a deal this is. Having too much fat in your liver is a major driver of all sorts of other nasty health issues.
And when I say slashed, I mean it. Just look at this. For the people who started the study with diagnosed fatty liver, their liver fat was almost cut in half. It dropped from around 14% all the way down to under 8%. That is an incredible change in just 3 short months.
But it wasn't just about the liver. The good news kept coming. The diet also had a big impact on key markers for prediabetes. We're talking about insulin resistance. That's when your body just isn't handling blood sugar very well. So this chart shows a score called HOMA-IR. It's a way to measure insulin resistance. And all you need to know is that lower is better. And for the people in the study who were pre-diabetic, their score dropped in a big way. That means their bodies got much better at using insulin, which is basically moving them further away from the danger zone of a full-blown diabetes diagnosis.
Okay, so powerful changes to our metabolism. Check. But the researchers discovered that the effects went even deeper than that. This wasn't just about fat and sugar. The diet seemed to be doing something really interesting to our body's main line of defense, our immune system.
As we age, our immune system can get kind of wonky. It gets less balanced. There's a fancy science name for it, but what matters is that the study measured this imbalance. They used something called the lymphoid to myeloid ratio. And here's the simple takeaway. A higher ratio is a good thing. It points to a more youthful, more balanced immune system.
And what did they find? The results were crystal clear. The group that wasn't on the diet, no real change. But the FMD group, the ratio went up significantly.
This is a huge clue that the diet was helping to push their immune systems back towards a more youthful, more functional state.
So let's just recap for a second. We've got less liver fat, we've got lower diabetes risk, we've got an immune system that looks more youthful. I mean, any one of those things on its own is fantastic. But what happens when you combine all of them? What is the total effect on the body's age?
A drop of 2.5 years. Let that sink in. Using a scientifically validated method for calculating biological age, the researchers found that after only 3 months of these FMD cycles, the participants, on average, had lopped 2.5 years off their biological age.
And don't just take my word for it. Here's the quote directly from the scientists who ran the study. They confirm it. A decrease of 2.5 years in biological age. But notice that last part, it's super important. Independent of weight loss. That means something else is going on here.
Okay, turning back the clock. A 2.5-year drop in biological age is, well, it's the kind of number that makes you sit up and pay attention. But how? How is that even possible? And what's to say it's not just some fluke?
Now, if you're a bit skeptical right now, good. You should be. The most obvious question is, hey, wait a minute. Isn't this just because people lost weight? I mean, we all know losing weight generally makes you healthier. Maybe this is just a fancy way of proving that. But the scientists were all over this question.
And here's why it's not just about weight loss. First, even when they crunched the numbers to completely remove the effect of weight loss, that 2.5-year age reduction was still there. Second, this wasn't just one thing changing. It was a whole body, system-wide improvement. And maybe the coolest part? The people who were the oldest biologically when they started, they got the biggest benefit. It's like the diet was helping their bodies get back to where they needed to be.
Okay, so what could all this mean in the real world? We've got these amazing results from a pretty short study. What about the long game? Well, the researchers actually ran some computer simulations to project this out, and the possibilities are tantalizing. But, and this is important, they come with some major caveats.
Based on their models, doing these FMD cycles every year could potentially slow down the aging process, slash the risk of dying from things like heart disease or cancer, and maybe even boost life expectancy. But, and this is a really big but, we have to remember these are just projections. They're based on a short-term study, and the authors themselves are very clear. We need to be really cautious about jumping to conclusions here.
And that really brings us to the big final question. Could doing a special diet for just a few days, only a few times a year, fundamentally change how we age? This study doesn't give us the final definitive answer, but it opens up a mind-blowing possibility that a targeted, brief intervention might be able to do more than just keep us healthy. It might actually rewrite the script of aging itself. Something to think about. Thanks for joining The Explainer.